Yes. Hello and welcome. Welcome back to day 10 of the 25 Days, 25 Skills Creators series with Preethi Sunallinii, founder of I Integrated Parenting, and with me is Garima, founder of Authenticity. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting concept, the power pause. Why every teacher needs a moment of silence. We always seem to be functioning in a certain pressure today. It's quite a fast paced world we live in, and we're bringing that fast paced living into our classrooms as well. Right, we're always on the move. There is some kind of an urgency to fill every moment, to schedule the class in a certain way, to ensure there are activities, to ensure there are assignments, to ensure there are project works, discussions, debates. The classrooms are always busy, but the interesting thing is, not every moment needs filling, and that's also not an efficient way in which learning happens. That can be an efficient way for us to teach because it's in doing, but learning is an absorption process, and we cannot be filling every single minute if we want the learning process to be efficient. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. With that comes the conversation of energy levels in the classroom. Now, if you think about what these energy levels are, for us to be able to learn, for us to get into any kind of a flow state, to do anything with focus, to do anything diligently, completely, with a certain level of finesse, we do need to have some kind of a concentration, yes, but also our energy levels. Have you had those times when you're really super excited, very, very excitable, and I'm sure you get clumsy in the kitchen, right? And then there are times where you're feeling like, my God, why am I even getting out of my bed today? And it feels like something is burning, you're leaving some, your body is taking time to follow through while your mind has gone ahead, right? Both of this is talking about the energy level. Imagine that in the classroom. What does that look like? Teacher is talking, she's gone somewhere else, but you're still processing the previous concept. Or your mind is racing, coming up with new ideas for something, but the teacher is yet to catch up. We have both these experiences happening in the classroom. So as a teacher, as the person in charge of holding the classroom in a certain pace, in a certain space, and taking the lead there, what can we do to maintain the optimum learning energy level? And what does that even look like? That is what we want to be talking about today. So that requires presence, that requires intuition, and some creativity as well. So, how do we do that? Let's talk about it. So, as we go ahead, what are your thoughts, Garima?
Thank you so much, Preeti. Wow, it's like a magic box that you just popped open because there's so much to really unpack with this one. So I'm really excited about this conversation. One thing that's coming up for me as I was listening to, the whole context setting from your end is the state of flow. And that's so true. Like all of us in our um, learning journeys, in our journey of even professionally being occupied, we've experienced that state where you lose a sense of time, place, anything, and you're just in that state of flow. Most often that's attached to a creative pursuit, but if you really love what you're doing and if you really love what you're learning, then you can definitely get into a state of flow even in that capacity. And the joy uh, of being in that state is something that you can't define really in words because that's very experiential, so to say. And as you were talking, I was realizing that creating that kind of a momentum in a classroom, which is a one to many format, can be very, very challenging because what may really be enjoyable as an experience for one student could be a little cumbersome and challenging for the other, and could be a little boring and dampening for the third one. So you don't really know. Because how do we define the state of flow first to begin with? On a graph, if we are to set levels of how invested are you, how focused are you, how zoomed in and steady are you with one concept that you're really looking at, what is it that state of flow is going to look like for you? It's a very, very fine balance, right? Anything that under challenges you from a capacity standpoint, oh, I already know this one, this is an easy peasy one for me. You don't feel challenged enough, excited enough. And at the other end of the spectrum is something that's so challenging that you switch off, that you turn yourself out, you tune yourself out of it because, oh, this is too tough for me. I'm not going to ever be able to understand this complex, concept or something. Somewhere in between, where your excitement, adventure, desire to learn, curiosity, everything hits an optimal sweet spot, is what a state of flow is. And like you rightly said, it's a combination of a lot of aspects that one needs to be mindful of, especially so with energy, with the way it's being articulated, the way it's being delivered, the creativity and innovation in which how it's being presented to you, and how ready are you to absorb. So too many modalities to take care of in any interaction, more so in a teaching environment and a learning environment, which is a one to many. What strikes me in this entire conversation is that as much as you may want to homogenize the process, you cannot deny the fact that it is a heterogeneous mix of cognitive ability, of creative ability, of energy, and so much more. So it's challenging. One solution that definitely comes to my mind as an educator or as a professional or as a speaker in a one to many format is keeping the state of energy to a level where at least everybody is with you, and there this trick of state change that we've all learned through our journey of becoming an educator or becoming a trainer or facilitator, that again and again and again you got to check if your audience are on board with you. So be it emoting through an action, asking them a question, be it getting them to come to the front of the room and share something, be it dividing them into partnerhood and asking them to exchange their thoughts. These are small magic tricks that you can throw in to keep uh, the room with you. But I think one thing that's coming up for me in this entire conversation is, instead of just trying to be high on energy throughout, it's important to practice the pause and let the learning land profoundly. Because anything that's too flashy, anything that's too creative, anything that's too loud, m- there is a huge chance that it escapes you. It just either goes आपके सर के ऊपर से, it just completely goes above your head, or you're too dazzled by it. So what I really realize is that breakthroughs and learnings, deep learning, only happens in profound moments, and profound moments are not loud, they're not fast, they are slow, they're easy. They are in these moments when we allow ourselves to pause and stay with something for a bit. So, as we unpack that, Preeti, help me understand. We were also talking about the concept of the ability to focus and how it's deteriorating over a period of time. I think what I'm speaking is more from a um, middle to adulthood learning space as well, where there is room for profound learning, and and both parties understanding that fine, we can take a moment with this concept per se. How does it look for a younger crowd? How does learning evolve in that space? Talk to us about that, if that's something that we can focus on.
So, see, on average, across the spectrum, for sure, with the dawn of the digital era, the attention span has drastically gone down. And, I'm sure we all keep hearing this phrase that, we've got the attention span of a goldfish, right? Which doesn't last more than 6 seconds. Now, that is for catching attention, as in within the first 3 seconds, 6 seconds. If you don't catch the attention, it's gone. I want something else, right?
You've lost it,
So
yeah.
that is where we're talking about in terms of seconds. But if you look at take even a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, they find a new toy, let's say you give them a Russian doll, and they're trying to open it. Now, like you very rightly said, for a 3-month-old or a 6-month-old, opening a dabba can be extra challenging, so much so that they lose interest. वो देखेंगे अच्छा इसमें कुछ और नहीं है, they throw it, they will look for something else. But once they reach about 10, 12 months of age, now they are a little more interested, right? Because their hands, their muscles have become a little more stronger, their bones are a little more stronger, their grasping capacity has become, basically the physical infrastructure is ready for that challenge.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
because of that, they are able to sit with it. Now give them something colorful, give them something interesting along with that, for sure you will see them sitting with it for at least 10 minutes, for sure, right? Now as time goes on, while it takes only seconds to catch attention, to keep the attention, how long can we keep the attention, that keeps increasing, on average about 3 4 minutes every couple of months,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
In fact, they say it is about 3 to 6 minutes every year, is what they say at that age. But by the time they come to about 6 to 8 years, children are capable of paying attention to one task for about 15 to 20 minutes, right? After which they will need a break state. What is a break state? So when we are focused on one thing, our mind gets tuned into that particular activity, and that is one state of mind, right? Once we get involved into it, engrossed in it, there comes a point where it feels too much, and we want to look up, turn around, go take a walk and come, take a sip of water, stretch a bit, whatever it is. So that is a break state. You're breaking the mental state in which you were in. That is a break state, right? And children on average require that, say, 10 to 15 minutes once. By about half, they're capable of sitting for about 20 minutes. Our whole systems at this point in time have 40-minute periods, right? 40 to 45-minute
Correct.
periods. Most of the time, if the teacher hasn't caught the child's attention with something interesting, something curious, something fun in the first couple of seconds, first couple of minutes, when is it minutes, when is it seconds? First couple of minutes, once you enter the room, you've got the attention of the class, right? I thought this is important distinction to make. Once your lesson starts, it's the first couple of seconds, right? If you're doing, let's say, English stories, it's easy, right? You create some kind of curiosity about what we're going to be doing today. Let's see what this rabbit is going to do. Let's see what this old man is going to do. Whatever the story is about. When it comes to math and science, I remember I had a math teacher who would pull up stuff from everyday life. Let's say you go to the grocery store. You've got this much money. This is what you need to buy. How are we going to divide this? Today, we're going to learn division. Right? So, to connect what we are going to be doing to real life
The
relatable
reality.
points is a fantastic way to create a connection for the student, for a student to be interested there, right? Once you're able to gather their interest in those first couple of seconds of your lesson plan beginning, then you have about 10 to 20 minutes to give them one concept and then give them a break. By break, I don't mean they need to step out or do anything much different, but basically
Breather.
change. Instead of just going on a lecture, get them to do some activity, write something or share with their partner what is it that they did, maybe share with the class what is it that you learned, something like that. Basically changing the mode in which they're processing the information can help to the attention there. The more as teachers we stay with monologues, the easier it is to lose them.
Yeah.
When we are passive listeners, unless and until it's really engaging, like a, I don't know, money a movie. Hard. It's hard to listen to a lecture, even for adults. How many adults do we know who can listen to podcasts, audiobooks? Not many, right? Usually, "Arya, how long can you listen to that?" If we as adults find it difficult, and our attention span is supposed to be at about 40 to 45 minutes,
Yeah. Whoever said that. Yeah.
like I said, once you enter the flow, once you catch your interest, it is something that you want to do, then then it is possible to sit for 45 minutes to even 60 minutes for an adult. For children, it's at 20 to 40 minutes. 20 to 40, I'm talking about um, 10, 12, 12 to about 16, 18 years of age, right? So, which is pretty much all the way till our college, as in before they enter college, PUC, health standard in your space. So, how can we break down the classroom to ensure we are constantly roping in every child's attention,
Correct.
right? That is what we want to do in terms of helping them maintain that concentration. And another element also that comes up over here is maintaining a certain energy level.
Yeah.
What do we mean by energy level? Right at the start of this conversation, we spoke about, if you're feeling very drab, it's very difficult for us to keep up with the tasks that need to be done. And if you're feeling very excitable, it's very difficult to contain that energy. So, how do we do that in a regular classroom? There are schools where I have heard and seen between classes they give short 4 minute, 6 minute breaks where children get up, walk around, chit chat with each other, and come back.
Okay.
Right? And I can't remember exactly where it was, but there was a trampoline on every floor.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense.
Where
Yeah.
children can go and jump every now
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah.
Right? What that does is it releases the restless energy in the body, the higher energy levels, which makes one restless, which gets them to wander easily, get distracted very easily, ask really random, irrelevant questions in the classroom. Once they go and jump up and down, not as a punishment, it's still a fun activity. Once they do that and come back, they're much calmer.
Right. Right.
So that optimum energy level is something that we need to tune into. In your experience, Garima, how do you identify what is the ideal energy level in your class?
That's such a fantastic question. And I don't know if I have a perfect answer to that though. But yes, I completely agree with you that an optimum energy level is super important because you don't want a very heightened energy and you do not want a completely drab, slow, boring energy. And most of my classes, because they are experiential and they're communications led, there is the need to emote is so much higher. The need to really be present to what is happening in the room is so much higher because I'm sure you understand the whole concept of when you take a stance and when you address a room, there is a part of you that's physically standing there and addressing the room, but then there is a part of your energy that's filling the room, right? The posture with which you stand, the expressions that you bring, in your face, the gestures that you use, the speed at which you move, all of these are important. And therefore, specifically in somatically emotive classes like communication and various other such subjects, it's very important for you to strike that optimum energy balance. um, Honestly, Preeti, I don't know if there is really a temperature check that one can really do on that from a tangible perspective. But like you rightly said in the beginning of the conversation, this evaluation and this analysis, be it on your own self and be it on the room, is something that you hone instinctively, intuitively over a period of time. And that's where the experience comes in, because like I've said this a lot of times before, like you just rightly said, if there is restless energy, you will start seeing that. The what are the signs that are going to be in the restless class? You will see more people moving, you will see more of them wanting to put their head down and sneak on the side and catch like a small dialogue here and there. You'll see some of them like really staring into the air and not really paying attention. And all of these, at times we misperceive them as signs of disinterest. This is the body asking for that release, that energy release. It could be releasing a certain degree of energy, it could be gaining a certain degree of energy. And mostly in the classes that I teach, I see a lot of nervous energy, because there's this little voice in your head that's telling you that you're going to be perceived a certain way, you're going to talk, and now somebody's going to judge you, and now everybody, all eyes are on you, on how you're showing up, because these are, like I told you, a lot of activity based sort of environments. One simple trick to get out of your head and get into your body in a situation like this is something very basic, like a quick five jumping jack sort of a hack, right? And I've seen some of the best speakers across the globe doing this, because at the end of the day, all this fight that's happening in your head, all this conversation that's happening in your head is not going to serve you when you're going to be at the front of that room. Not only does that apply to the people who are coming in to study in these classes, same applies on me as a teacher, as an educator, as an evaluator, as somebody who's even sitting in this conversation with you, right? There's a certain degree of lighting that one needs, there's a certain degree of posturing that one needs. And in our desire to look a certain way, be a certain way, say a certain thing, I think what we lose out on is this amazing energy, is this hack that we can really play to our advantage. That three breaths of centering that one can really do before entering that class or after, or if something's not going your way, there's this, the power of pause that we began this conversation with, again, is one of those simple tricks that I think escapes us when we are in middle of certain things. This,
True.
what I'm realizing increasingly is there's need to acknowledge the power of a small trick like this, and to inculcate it. For example, mindfulness, while increasingly schools are adopting the whole concept of mindfulness before a circle of sharing, or during an assembly, or before the examinations and stuff like that, small small initiatives are being done, and all of these things are brought in. But the more we move towards adulthood, the more we move towards a space where it's in our hands to maneuver this vehicle and manage our own energy, we just start assuming that all of this is like, woo woo stuff. It doesn't work. But it does, right? All we need is a moment of presence where we tune in, take a few deep breaths, center ourselves, ground ourselves, get our energies up, and just be present to that moment. One last thing before I hand it over back to you for your thoughts that works really well is intention setting. While we are practicing that pause, if we can set the intention for whatever we are doing, be it a challenging lesson that you're teaching at a classroom level, be it even a live discussion between you and me where we want the right things to come out of our mouth, and we want them to land a certain way with the audience, um, be it some creative activity that we want all the class, the entire class to participate and bring their brightest energy on with you. Uh, be it a profound lesson where you want them to be grounded and be with you while you maneuver through a complex thought process. I think, along with practicing the pause, setting the intention for it is also something that just subtly is a small trick that goes a long way in bringing your mindset to the right path, and then thereby having others follow through. What do you think?
Absolutely. In fact, this again brings the conversation back to, co-regulation that we spoke about. I think in day
Earlier.
6 or 5. I'm not sure. So, as a teacher, our mental state, our emotional thermometer, so to say, is contagious, right? When as a teacher I'm really upset about something, I'm trying to brush it off, and I'm half here, you can be sure all your students are half here, or at least most of them, right? When you are completely checked out and distracted, you're bringing that energy, that is the energy that you're emitting. And in a classroom, when as a teacher I'm able to be grounded and fully present, it is easier for the students to be fully present, right? And as I'm fully present, I'm also able to tune in to the class. No, like you said, it's there is no particular formula for what is the ideal. We can't give a specific number, right? You can't denote it in a specific way to say yes, this is the perfect temperature for learning. As
True.
in, when you're standing there, you get it that yes, children are getting it, children are with you. You'll see probably nods, you're probably seeing some pensive thinking, some children are perhaps making some notes. And there are times where everybody's, half of them are just staring at you, they're wondering where are you going with this, what is going on here. You just know it, right? And when you do, even for you to be able to see that, you need to be present in the moment, tuned into yourself,
Correct.
to be grounded. That is what allows us to tune in to our students. And when we are able to do that, we can then use our presence and intuition to also guide us to create that state change. For that, it's important for us to be tuned in with ourselves as well. Am I in any way contributing to this? Right? Is there, do I need to ground myself first? Do I need to bring myself back into the body first, back into the moment first? Right? So when we are able to take the lead there, we're literally giving them something to emulate. You know what they say, when things are, children are very restless and talkative, and it's a noisy classroom, it's messy, and all of that. When we end up raising our voice and screaming and getting at them, what is wrong with you? What we're doing is we are adding to the chaos. They're already in a chaotic energy, and we end up throwing our anger into the mix, which makes it more into a storm. We are turning a storm into a hurricane rather than really
Correct.
calming. So, can we share our calm? Can we share a grounded presence? We all remember one teacher in our life for sure. No matter how chaotic the class, when they walk in, there'll be everything will just fall flat, right? Just their mere presence. They don't have to say a word, right? And I remember some teachers who would look very strict. I've never seen them hit anybody or even yell at anybody, like really raise their decibels. But their body language and the few words that they speak would be so firm and impactful. It would just end. And it is in that silence is built on a foundation of strength from within. It's not something that you
Correct.
gather just in the moment, right? It's your
Correct.
energy, your vibe. Your vibe is what is creating that energy in the room. So as teachers, we also do need to look at what is the personality that my students are seeing in me. Who are they seeing in me? Who am I being in that moment? Right? What are they seeing in me? I don't mean what am I projecting, that I think goes to an external image, but what am I really? We all have this strange, what is that? Incongruence, right? When somebody asks you, hey, how you doing? You could have had a really shitty time. Like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay. Right? So there is that incongruence. Especially as teachers, we have this innate need to project a certain way to our students, to the
Correct.
world. And when
Correct.
it is not in alignment with how I'm truly feeling inside, children and others can definitely sense that something is off. They may not be able to say, oh, no, she's actually angry, but she's doing this. But they know that you're not being truthful. You're not in alignment.
Yeah.
You're not in
Yeah.
integrity.
Yeah. And as you're saying this, no, Preeti, one thing that's coming up for me is that truly, genuinely, so there are days, I'll be honest, there are days which are off for me. There are days when I realize that, I don't know, but somehow I'm not being able to read the room.
Mm,
Somehow I'm not able to really get the mood of the room really. And this could be any room. This does not have to just be a learning and teaching room. This could be even a professional room where you're delivering, some sort of a talk, some discussion, a coaching session, there are times when you feel that somehow your hand is not on the pulse. The reality is that it may not always be so. It's not necessary, compulsory that you'll always get it, you'll always get it right.
Totally.
Yeah. And over the years, it has taken me some time to reach a place where I have to remind myself that it is not validation that I'm seeking from this room. There is a chance that there will be contradictions. There's a chance that there's going to be conflict. One does not have everything personally. And only, and this just goes back to the intention setting, to practicing the pause, to being in the moment and being present with what you yourself are also feeling and processing, and thereby holding space for these, kids who are around you, kids or adults, whatever. So, as you talk about this fact that these strict teachers who didn't speak too much, that whatever little they shared, it's the whole concept of boundaries. That teacher must have such solid boundaries that that beyond a point you can't mess with her, right? And she doesn't have to say that, really. So it's so amazing that all of that happens. It's a process of stack learning, one over the other, over the other, over the other, in terms of concepts, right? So you learn these concepts, you practice these concepts, you experience different situations in different rooms. And one thing that I'd like, if whoever's listening to this, releasing the need to be validated by the room can also play a big role in you becoming more stronger and more grounded you are as a teacher, right? Because at times, in our desire to be accepted, to be appreciated, to be loved, or my word should be the last word, and I should always win in this equation, then it becomes a monkey business because you cannot get that energy of 50 students versus you. And the whole concept of adding to the chaos that you were talking about is also pretty much that, right? It becomes like a power situation. They are shouting, you are shouting, they are, and it all just becomes like a mess. That's where you've got to stand and detangle first your what's going up here first and here, and then come to a place which is not easy. It's not
Yes,
easy.
definitely not, especially because I think for many educators, it's also somewhere there is a voice that says, you can't even manage a class, you can't even do this. So somewhere there is that inner voice, right? That is criticizing you, judging you. It's basically you judging yourself, criticizing yourself in the assumption that others are doing it, right? Before anybody else judges me, let me judge myself, let me criticize myself. I think that is where it shifts from being present to being going into a spiral of feeling helpless and powerless, and you know and from there comes the anger and all of the chaos, adding to the chaos, so to say. Now again, for this, if we can come back to where we started, the power pause, what can a pause do, a simple pause do in the middle of this chaos? Perhaps even before you start the class, before you enter the class, maybe once you enter the class and you see a mess. So maybe it is, yes, you've had your introduction and everything, and you're about to start the lesson. Maybe you need to pause at that moment. Maybe it's been a good 10-15 minutes since the start of your class, and you need a pause then. What are all of these pauses for? One, to check in with yourself. What is your pulse? What are you feeling? Name it to tame it, right? The more present and aware we are of our mental state, our emotional state, the easier it is to be in charge, to be able to channelize it in the direction we want.
Correct.
And a pause also helps us to become present to what's happening around us, with the students, with the audience, to connect with the audience. And in most of my classes, as I start the session, I usually go and stand for a good 20, 30 seconds just looking around
Mm-hmm.
without saying a word. Even if the classroom is going kachar, 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 it's fine. I will just stand there to scan, to see how am I feeling when I see this? How am I doing? Am I okay? Because I don't want to be bringing my trigger patterns and showing that here, bring it here, right? To see if I'm in charge, I'm grounded. Yes, I can deal with this. Yes, this feels a little off for me. Yes, this is triggering for me. It's triggering for me because I don't like a lot of noise. It makes me feel like I'm not doing a good job. Okay, I recognize that. I see that. Now, can I come to this moment? How do I want to deal with this? What kind of a teacher do I want to be today? How do I want to show up for my children today? That is what the pause can make happen for us, can enable us to do. And I think that is a very powerful thing for us in the moment, but also a powerful thing for us to role model for our children,
True.
right? Something that they
True.
can take back as well, right?
True.
So, all in all, I think the pause and the energy levels are both about bringing in practical ways to hold the room in a certain way so that we as teachers are able to guide our children in a particular direction, whether it is in the context of subject matter expertise, in terms of life skills, in terms of behavior and communication, in whatever sense we might be looking at in that moment. Anything you would like to add to this, Garima, as we close?
Yeah, yeah. One thing, yes, as we close this, as we come to the fag end of it, one more thing that's coming up for me, Preeti, here is increasingly bringing more flexibility in our rooms to even allow that pause to the students. Because a lot of times the power is so much in the hand of the teacher to conduct, and that power, there's a thin line when that power turns into a burden because you decide that, oh, it's all on my back and I'm going to drive this bus. The concept of cold regulation that we were talking about earlier is not to see it just in mirroring. It's the mirroring happens both ways, right? So, another thing that I'd like to leave the audience with is a thought on allowing that degree of flexibility in the room for us to let the students decide that what energy do they want to operate from, if they need a state change, if they need a little bit of a break, like just democratize the whole process a little without compromising on the learning. But I think the moment you democratize the process a little, then I think it becomes a relatively more of a win-win situation for both parties. Not only does that release that pressure from you on keeping their energy at a certain level. So, the moment you give them their space, they will regulate themselves. Like, I'm just saying, believe in their ability
Capacity for
to
that as well.
capacity and ability to self-evaluate. And the sooner we start doing that, like as a family therapist, I'm sure we can talk about it at some point of time. Um, Even a small child, when they're feeling a certain way, agitated, emotionally charged, triggered, the moment you leave them and tell them, fine, okay, process this and we'll talk in a bit. I know one to one, there is more room and flexibility, but somehow in a bigger room as well, in a one to many format as well. Last thought that's coming up for me is that it's a two-player game. So it's, as much as an educator, as a teacher, as the person who is slightly more powerful in the hierarchy, uh, it's important for me to pause and be centered. It's also on me to let the room decide the mood at times. And the more participative I make this process, deeper the learning and more rewarding the whole experience is going to be. This that's that's what I feel.
Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful way to conclude this, democratizing the process. I'm sure there would be, especially, for the audience, I'm sure there'll be more questions on democratize the classroom. Do you know what chaos that can cause? Yes, I hear you. We hear you. I'm sure we feel you. I think the trick there is not to say, okay, sabko kya chahiye, sab ek ek bolo. It's not like that. That's not the democracy we're talking about. But more in terms of, I think, maybe giving one or two options of what is it that would work for you, and then getting
Yeah.
the children to pick from that. And basically, I think taking the room in together in a particular direction rather than just the teacher specs and the more attentive and
Yeah,
interactive
yeah,
ones as
yeah.
such.
There's smart ways to do this, but the idea is to have the intention to want to do it rather than keep the power to yourself. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
you're right there.
Thank you so much. As we come to the end of today's session, today's talk on day 10, the entire conversation has been at the core about not having to fill every moment with a lesson plan, with an activity. It's okay to have a quiet, it's okay to have some pause. That can allow us and our audience, our children, to profoundly bring themselves and ourselves into the present moment. By consciously choosing to hold the space in the classroom to regulate the energy levels in the classroom, we're doing so much more to help them create that fertile space for learning than just by going off on a certain in our own space and our own energy levels, right? So here we want to be we what we would like you to take back is to model self-regulation, but also also be present to what is it that we are sharing in the space so that we can invite deeper learning in a calm and conscious environment where there is both a give and take, which is an intuitive process of connection between the educator and the students. That is the shift that we would like to bring in to say it's not just about lesson plans, it's also about the mindset and the mental space that our students are in that moment. Having said that, anything you'd like to add to this, Garima? Yeah? Okay, thank you for that. So, any other questions that you have, any comments? What did you think about today's topic? Any comments that you have, please do reach out to us, drop your comments down in the chat below. If there are any particular topics that you would like us to take, feel free to DM us. We're right here for you. And we will see you the next session tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.